Are you both able to see the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll take it as a yes from Emma. All right, so welcome to the introduction to Parish Online. Basically, what I'm going to tell you this evening is how it works, what it can do, and then we give you the chance to have a go at it, because that seems to be the best way of helping people. A couple of notes up front. We do make a recording because there's a lot of slides to go through today. And the best way of doing that I have found is to go roaring through them at high speed and then send everybody the presentation and the video at the end. And if they want to go through in slow time or to highlight any points, they can do that. So you do get the full presentation and the video afterwards, which will include all your questions if there be any. We will not stay on any one slide for very long. And if you need, just the two of you, if you need me to stop, just shout, please. So what we're going to cover is the need for the licenses that make the system more valuable to you, how the system works and what it can do. Then we're going to introduce you to the maps and layers that are the basic strength of the system, how you use those layers to increase people's ability to understand what's going on, and then we'll do it yourself. And then we finish up with a Q&A if you haven't been asking questions all the way through. So starting off with the public sector geospatial agreement, this is a completely free thing for anybody who's on a local council. And what it does is increase the level of definition of what you see. So on the right-hand side here, you've got a sort of fuzzy detail at the moment. But if we go to a PSGA, then you get that sort of detail. And in the same way, you get aerial photography built into the system. But if you don't add the PSGA number, which automatically gives you the license for APGB, you don't go from this picture here to this one here, which is much greater clarity. This sort of thing makes it easy to pick out street lights or park benches or whatever else it is that the council is responsible for. So to get the highest definition map from the Ordnance Survey, you need a PSGA number, which you enter into Parish Online when you first start it. If you don't have one now, you can get it for free, and you get it by going through the help system inside Parish Online. So if you click up on this little cogwheel up in the top right corner, you get a drop-down menu. If you go into help and support, you get taken to the support center. And if you type in PSGA, then up comes getting a PSGA number, and you have a step-by-step instructions to follow, and your PSGA number comes through quite quickly. They say it can take up to 5 days. I've never known it take longer than about 5 minutes. They're very quick, which is very nice. And then that automatically signs you up for your aerial photography license. So what can the system do, and how does it work? So what you've got, and this is accessible through just your browser. You don't need anything else. You don't download any software. You don't need any apps. Everything is built in via the browser. So it's a mapping portal that gives you a digital copy of the entire United Kingdom, which you can view in wonderful, glorious detail. And you can go all over the country. Although the system always starts up in your area, it is not restricted to that. So lots of information available here to help you. There's email support, newsletters. The knowledge base is really the help system that's built in. There's a user group that advises you on all sorts of little things. And then there's the training like you're getting this evening. So the tutorials in the knowledge base are well worth watching. They sort of tend to be a combination of videos and instructions. And then there's lots of email support available to you. So why should we use maps? Well, everything has a place in the world. Maps are wonderful because when you put something on the map, you can then click on it. And if you can, if you can see my mouse moving around, you just click on an event and it comes up with more details about it. So why would local councils want to use these digital maps? Well, this is the list of all the things they're doing. As you said, John, neighborhood plans is often the starting sort of trigger point for people. But there's all these other choices that people are doing all the time. Contracts management, it's amazing how much simpler it is to manage the mowing contracts if you've given a map to each contractor and shown exactly where he's responsible for. Life becomes a lot easier. Event planning, you're closing roads, you're opening gardens or whatever it happens to be, it helps if everyone knows. So there's always an element of location for councils. You know, they're doing something somewhere all the time, and being able to put it on a map makes life a lot easier. So you're also moving everything out of your filing cabinet and into a digital system that's available 24/7 to lots of people. So when the parish clerk disappears off to Madagascar on holiday with the filing cabinet key in her or his pocket, it doesn't matter because everything is still visible and everybody can see it. So it's a very safe, secure place to keep records away from paper, because taking things off paper means it's much faster to find them and change them and adjust them later. You can create your own maps, and we'll do a lot of that this evening. Everything that you have locally, particularly anything to do with planning applications, drawing out new, where you're going to put the new village hall or the pavilions or whatever else it is, you can create your own layers of all that sort of information. You can print out maps either as a paper copy or as a PDF copy, which you can then send out to everybody by email. And we'll show you other ways as well of making the information public to the rest of the world. So it's a great way of sharing information, but this is the PDF way is to get your contractors working on the bits that they're supposed to be working on. And the mapping data comes from everywhere. So what you'll see is that the base map, the digital map of the United Kingdom, comes from the Ordnance Survey. And then you have the ability to layer on top of that from literally hundreds of layers. And some of them are coming from government sources, others are coming from NGOs or even private organizations such as the National Allotment Society. Information all pouring into Parish Online, all readily available to you, all built into the initial purchase of the product. Some case studies of what people have done with it. And there is a wonderful area of the Parish Online website, their base website, called Case Studies. You can go and call all of these up. And the beauty of this is it shows you step by step how they got to the point where they're showing you what they're doing. So these are just examples of people who found it necessary for different things. The bottom line here is particularly useful. You can get residential addresses from everybody in the country, which is really useful if you're doing COVID-19 support, for instance. And you're all familiar with painting pictures, so you can just start with a base map and then you add in the bits that you want to see. So there's the map, the local gap where you can't build. There's the bits where you can build. These are the bits where you don't want to do anything, perhaps. And then finally, you can say, these are the visual areas from people's houses. This is what you can see when you stand there. And is that what you want your local area to look like? So Chelsea, being a seaside town, has got all of these resources, if you will, along the seashore that they're responsible for. Things like benches and walls, all need maintaining, they need painting, they need sort of checking and inspecting. And this is a way to keep track of all of that. And we'll show you again how to do all of this later on this evening. The digital asset register is a wonderful way of keeping track of what you own, but also showing where it is. So here we've got, dog poo bins, public telephones, whatever they are, your speed cameras, and all sorts of things, where the train station is, where the bus stops are, all the things that people need to know, particularly when they want to, they're moving into the village or your area for the first time. Very handy to be able to show them where everything is. So these people are worried about gritting. So if you're in a part of the country that tends to get snow, and of course we all live in England where you never get snow, but knowing where the salt bins are and knowing whom to contact to say ours is empty, please fill it up, and this is where it is very convenient. You can pass them coordinate information which they will recognize on their maps. So it's a great way of giving very precise data to people. Okay, cemetery management, the system comes with your local cemetery as boundaries indicated if the world knows about those cemeteries. Not everybody has all of their cemeteries recorded yet, but the individual plots are something that parish councils themselves are invited to fill in, and it's a whole lot easier if you've got a mapping system to help you. So all sorts of other things in terms of planning applications. In the case of our local parish council, its biggest item on the agenda is always the planning applications. So you can take a look at any application and see whether it's threatened or it threatens sites of special scientific interest, conservation areas, that are flood risk, or whatever it happens to be. It's much easier to see when it's visualized. Here is an example of publishing applications to your local website, your village website. So this is a map directly out of Parish Online. And the thing is that it automatically updates itself. So if you change some data here in Parish Online, it will automatically be reflected to the public map on the village website. Really, really helpful. Nether Stowey is obviously using their local copy of Parish Online to enhance their local leaflets. And here is a place, well, all local places which are using Parish Online all the time as part of their daily function. So the beauty of these case studies are that they're available on the website. You can go ahead and look at them under the case studies tab. And again, they show you how they got to the answers that they got, which is really useful if you're starting out. So let's go into what makes the system tick. So first of all, it's a geographical information system, a GIS, which means that it understands the coordinates coming from all the big boys. So your local planning authority, your local district council, your county council, or your unitary, they're all using GISs, and this system is completely compatible with them. So it is digital map and software, which is doing much what we used to do. If you go back to the days of these overhead projectors, you would put up a basic picture and then you'd overlay on the top of it different transparencies with different paintings or different pictures, and you would sort of get your felt tip pen out and draw lines for everybody. Well, we're now doing exactly the same thing, but we're doing it on computers. All about layers. So the information is coming from all sorts of third parties. You've got the land registry here, you've got DEFRA putting in their little bit, Historic England with all these information about grade 2 listed houses and so forth, and everything else that you need to know about, aerial photography and the basic ordnance survey. Everything here that you need to understand your answers. Well, how do I go backwards? Sorry about that. And let's go forwards. And then these layers you can turn on or off as you wish to make you get exactly the picture, or enable you to get the picture that you're trying to convey to fellow councillors or contractors or whoever it may be as your audience. So there is a data record for most items in your map, and clicking on an object is a way of getting the record up. So it's what I call location-based data. If you go to the location and click on it, chances are you'll come up with the information that you're looking for. And as you mentioned before, you can build up your own layers for whatever purposes you need. Very useful. All right, layers can consist of either points, such as we have here, which are things like bus shelters, trees, that sort of thing, or lines, such as the boundaries of fields or recreation grounds or footpaths, that sort of thing, or polygons, which is virtually everything else, odd shaped bits of land or whatever it is that you're trying to describe. But you can only have one type of geometry for each layer. And so if you're trying to describe something that is both a point and a line, or the starting point, end point, you put on two layers and you just show them both at the same time. You can show any number of layers at any one time. The only question is how complex do you want the picture to be? So some ideas before you get going. I think these are all very straightforward. So I'll just let you browse those when I send you the presentation. Let's get into line and show you what it is. So this is the opening screen when you log on. It always logs on to your local parish. So in my case, I'm in Long Sutton in Somerset. So the system starts up here. And what you have on the right-hand side is the Ordnance Survey's high definition map. So this is the best digital picture you can get of the country. On the left here are what we call collections of layers, and I'll go into those in a moment. So just like if you ever use Google Maps, you can zoom in and zoom out with the plus and minus buttons, or if you have a wheel on your mouse, you can just wheel the mouse and you can scroll left and right to go anywhere you like in the country. Now, at the moment, we have no layers turned on. You're just seeing the straightforward digital map. And what we're going to show you next is how you can zoom around the entire country down to literally millimeters in your local area. So here's us zoomed out, just showing the UK. You can now zoom in a bit until you start seeing the details. And you're probably familiar with digital mapping, that the more you zoom in, the higher the level of the detail becomes. So when you're looking at the UK's digital map, there was almost nothing there except maybe principal cities. Now we've zoomed into my part of the world in Somerset, and we're looking at most of the county, but you can see most of the towns in the county and certainly all the major roads. If you go down a bit further, I'm now looking at my own village, and you start seeing the names of individual functions like the sewage farm and the road names and hills and road numbers, certainly all marked. If you go a bit further, you now start getting the individual names and numbers of individual buildings. And if I click on this building here, we're now zooming in a bit further, and we can zoom in, so you're really just seeing the edge of a building. So really tight work for making sure people are arguing about boundaries or where their buildings go or something. You have a digital map to show it down to the last millimeter. Talking about layers again, we remembered that we have different types of layers. So in your system on the left-hand side, you will see a bunch of layers that are green. These are your base maps, so the stuff that really creates the basic information that you're seeing here. So you've got various choices of Ordnance Survey maps, various choices of aerial photography to throw in on top of it. And those are the base ones, which are green. Now, the beige layers, or brown, whatever you want to call it, these are all the third-party ones of layers which go in on top of the base maps. So you can toggle these. These are collections. Underneath every one of these layers or bars is a collection of layers. So if I click on the green OSPGA layer here, you'll see it slacks open and shows you the various stacks available to you. This is the standard one. And when a layer gets turned on, you see the tick mark. And all these layers have nothing turned on, so all you see is the arrow. But on the ones where there is something ticked on, even if they're all closed up, you get a circle around the mini arrow just to show you. So the only layer turned on at the moment is the standard Ordnance Survey layer. If we move on to the next slide, I've now switched to the grayscale. And by the way, you turn layers on or off just by clicking anywhere in the bar. So if I turn this on by just clicking here, and if I turned off the previous one, I just clicked there and the tick disappeared. So if you're printing and you don't want to be blinded by too much color and simple, you just want to do a simple thing, you can go for the grayscale. or if you've got an old-fashioned sort of dot matrix type printer, you can go to the black and white, and that's even simpler. Now, what we've done, if we look here, you'll see we've started layering in on top of the base map. We've layered in the aerial, one of the aerial photography layers. And this looks a little strange because you've got a combination here, both of the digital map showing through and the photography on the top. And you can't really see very much of either. And the reason for that is up here. So if I move up there, I click on the tick, or anywhere I can right click in here, and up comes this little transparency filter. And basically you slide this along to get either 100% map, 100% photography, or zero map, if you will, or whatever's in between to help you out. So what I'm going to do is change that. So I've gone down to 0 base map. You've got 100% aerial photography here, which is a wonderful and helpful way of finding your way around the village. But if you don't recognize where you are, first of all, you can go to a little bit more photography or a little bit more map, just so it helps you show you what you do. And you can do that with all the layers here, just to adjust the degree of transparency. Now, I deliberately put this white screen on because occasionally, particularly when you've been using for photographs, the system isn't quite sure where it is or what you're doing. So I've left this here to show you that you can just refresh by clicking on this icon up here, your standard browser refresh icon, and that brings you back to the whole screen. So here we are back with just one layer turned on. And the question is, now we want to find what layers we're going to overlay. And this is, you have no idea what can be down here. There's literally hundreds of layers of information. So how do you sort out the ones you want? Well, it's very simple. They give you a search button. So I'm going to click on here and type in the word flood. And it immediately shrinks that list of hundreds of layers down to just the 3 collections that have layers in them that involve floods. So if I click on the Environment Agency, you can see there are 7 or 8, if not more than that, layers all involving flooding. If you want to see what they do, let's just click on this one. Bear in mind, I'm now in the Somerset levels, so we're rather prone to flooding. So I'm going to check on zone 3 here, and bang, this is what happens when it rains. So vast quantities of the county disappear underwater as a perfectly normal thing. This happens all the time. So if you finish with this particular search, you click up on the X to close it down. So really, as a result of this, you now know how to select different maps, different photographies, and the third-party layers. Let's talk about why you want to do this. All right, so what I've done now is switch to a layer that is tracking the trees that were given us by the tree charter. And they've asked us, as one of the conditions of donating free trees, to keep track of them so that they can see what happens to them. So we put some trees in this piece of land here, donated by a local farmer. And to find out what it's all about, we just click on it. And up in the left-hand column now, it changes to read the data record for this particular location. And what the record is, this is one that we created. So these are all fields that we just asked for. So we set in the information, basically said this was planted originally a couple of years ago. And we added in 5 photographs, 5 attachments of what they looked like at the time when they were planted. So if I click on the plus sign, it shows me the photographs. And then if I click on any one of the green arrows, I get the photograph here of actually what it's like. So what you see is each little sapling in its own protective tube, held in vertically by its own protective support. And you can see what I'm talking about, flooding here. It would obviously just been raining. You can see the roads are pretty wet, and bingo, the water's pouring in. So if you want to keep track of these trees, for instance, you might take a photograph every year and you can see the changes, which one have died, which ones have flourished. And then as they get replanted into areas so they go into mature trees, you can track each and every individual tree should you wish to. And So taking before and after pictures of anything that you're doing is a wonderful way of showing proper governance by your local council. Very useful when it comes to insurance claims and so forth. You can show that, look, this is the bench before we inspected it, this is the inspection report, and this is the maintenance we did as a result of that inspection report, all demonstrating that when grandma fell off the bench, it was nothing to do with the council not doing its job. So this is where we get to play with it now in due course. So it's the parish layers, which are the ones that you can change. All right. All of these others, with the exception of asset register, and we'll get into that in a minute, you can't change because it's not your data. But in the parish layer, you create whatever you wish. When you first open this layer, and if you've only just got Parish Online or you've never opened it, this layer may not even be visible. And if it isn't, I'll show you how to get it back. But if it is there, then there may be layers underneath, there may be not. So when you're adding a new layer, you obviously need to think about what it's for and what you want it to contain. So this is a bit where you're going to do the work now. And I hope that you're both able to log into Parish Online and you both have a user account with at least editor access. And you need to be able to switch from one screen, i.e. this Zoom screen, which is asking you what to do, to the Parish Online screen that is where you'll actually be doing it. And this particular slide is here because I've had people who aren't actually that sure of how they switch between two windows or two tabs on their browser. So if either of you has an issue with that, then now is a good time to let me know. But if you're both happy with switching between browser field tabs or different windows, then we can just race ahead. So I'm making the assumption that you're going to be using a desktop computer with a mouse. If you're using a tablet or you're using a trackpad, then things will be a little bit more difficult. In that slide we showed earlier of hints and tips, it said you're much better off using a mouse. So on the Zoom screen, that's what you're going to be doing in Parish Online, the instructions, and in the Parish Online is where you're going to be doing it, and give me a shout if you're having an issue. So what we do when we do things in Parish Online is first we create a layer, and this is where we're going to store data. So in the layer, you need a title, and I'm suggesting that tonight, just to make things easy, you use your name and the word test for the title. You can choose any type that you like of the geometry, line, point, or polygon, it doesn't matter, but I'm suggesting polygon. There will be a requirement to put in a description or an opportunity to put in a description, and we'll show you why that's useful. And then they ask you for at least one column of data, and I'm going to suggest we put in 3. The name column will be a typical text column. The date column, unsurprisingly, will be date. And the status column will be of the type text, but we're going to have allowed values in there, which will show you what they mean when we get there. So here you are in your Parish Online opening menu, I hope. And you should see in the top line of your menus a create menu. And when you click on it, you'll get down the add feature and the new layer, and you want to click on new layer. So unless somebody shouts, I'm assuming you've got this, so please click on new layer, and up will pop the screen that says create a new layer. And the first thing it asks for is a title. And this is where I suggest you call it John Test or Emma Test or whatever, just so that it becomes obvious what it's for. Just type in whatever you want and click on the next button. The next button is all about creating a new layer, and the first thing it asks you to do is to select the geometry type you want. Now you've got 3 choices, check any one, it doesn't matter which, but I suggest you go with polygon only because the examples I've got on the screen in Zoom will show you a polygon. And then underneath that, there's the opportunity to put in a long description. And the reason for that is the title is what's going to go into the brown column on your left. So you've only got so many characters available to describe what this layer is. And I guarantee you that in 2 months' time or in 3 years' time, when your replacement is coming in, they will have no idea what your short title means. So you need a description here that shows you what it is. Now, tonight, you don't need to put anything in there. I'm just telling you that it's there for the moment. When you're ready, click on Next. And now this is where we're actually going to add the columns of data. You remember we were going to have a name, a date, and a status. So to add the first column, you click on the plus sign on the top right. So click on the plus sign, and up will pop the first row or the first column, which will automatically be named name for you, which is very convenient because that's what we're going to leave it as. So just leave the name as name for the moment. You need a second layer, so click back again on the plus sign, and up will pop another row, but it'll also be called name. And you'll get a red warning that says column names must be unique. So please put your mouse over the second row name and just delete the word name and type in date instead for you. And then move along to the right to the type column and change the type from text to date. And when you're done, we're going to add a 1/3 column. So click on the plus sign again at the top. And you should get another screen up with yet another row called name. Change the name to status. Leave the text field as text. But because we're going to have allowed values, and this is just showing you how this works, please click on the add plus next opposite status. And you'll get a field up that looks, it says add allowed values. And the 3 allowed values that we want to put in, and there are going to be 3, just in the first one where it says add a value, just type in something like not yet started. Then click on the word add to the right and add another row, which is called under construction. And then do it again, click on add and create a third one and call it, say, finished. And I'm imagining for this example that you're building a new cricket pavilion or something on the recreation field. So hasn't yet started, or it's under construction, or it's finished. When you've finished all that, just click on the confirm button. And now it just asks you to confirm, sorry, and go on. And now it says, so have you finished? And you should have the 3 rows, name, date, status, and the bottom one shows that there are 3 items in the allowed values field. If you've got something like that, then click on the finish button. And if you haven't, then don't worry, but you can shout and let me know. Again, this is not serious, we're just playing tonight. So I'm going to click on finish. That takes you back to your main map, and you get the impression that absolutely nothing has happened. But if you look under parish layers now, you will see that you've added a new layer with, John or Emma test in it. If you've already got layers in the parish layer, you may have to scroll down to find it, because Parish Online always adds new layers to the bottom of the list. So I'm assuming that you're not having any problems in finding your test layer. If you are, then shout. If you're not, then click on it, just so that you can see that there's no data yet. If you're looking back at my Zoom screen, I'm going to say it's a good idea to make one of the columns a required column, which means that when you add a new feature, something must be entered into one of the columns. And the only reason for insisting on this is that it really helps you to find the data later. If you add a feature with no data in any of the columns, it's very tricky to find it and get rid of it later. So to make a column required, click on the cogwheel in the top right corner of your Parish Online and select the administration line from the drop-down wheel. And you may come up with a virtually empty screen, which will slowly fill with data of the layers you've got. If the only layer you ever got is yours, your test layer, that's magic. But if there are lots of layers there, you may, again, need to scroll down to the bottom to find your new one. It will be there. And you just click on it once to select it. That's all you need to do. And then on the right-hand column, you've got called layer details, there are two tabs. One's called general and one's called columns. If you click on columns, then you'll see your three columns, name, date, and status there. And the system has already filled in for you the search and query lines, but left the others all blank. And what you're going to do is to make the name field a required field. So just where it says required opposite name, just click on it, and that puts a tick mark in it. So when you've done that, you should find that on the top right-hand side of the screen, there's now a yellow icon of a disk showing you can save. And if you're all set to go, which I think you will be, just click on save. And that will take you back to the maps after it's asked you to just double check you do mean to save. So click on save. And you should get, only appearing for about 5 seconds, a little pop-up line which says the layer's saved. If you don't get that, let me know. But the only reason you wouldn't is usually if there's been a momentary glitch in your broadband and you haven't got through to the cloud system that you're working with. So the way around that is just to click again on save, and usually the glitch will have gone and you'll be all set to go. So when that's all been saved, you can go back to the main maps by clicking on the globe icon, again, up in the top right corner. There's a little globe which is called Back to Maps, and that takes you back. So before we just go into this, I'm going to summarize where we are. So if you come back from your Parish Online session to the Zoom session, just so you can see my slide, we've created a new layer. We called it John test or Emma test. We've created the necessary columns, 3 of them. We configured the status column so it has drop-down boxes with allowed values. We've configured the name column as required, and we've saved the layer and clicked on the globe to come back to maps. So the next step now is to put a data record in that new layer. And you can go back to your screen at the moment, your Parish Online screen. And in the line of your layer, which is called Emma test or John test, you want to do a right click anywhere in the brown side of the layer, and you get a little mini menu popping up. And what you're going to do now is add a feature. You can do this by going up to the top and create an add feature, but this is a faster way of doing it because it opens up in the layer you want it. So if you're in your test layer, right click anywhere in the brown bit, up will pop the mini menu and click on add feature, which is what I'm doing. And you should now have a copy of the map on the right hand side, the digital map with nothing showing. And on the left, you've got what's called the feature editor. And it'll have the top layer you've got selected, your test layer. Then the name field should be outlined in red because it's a required field. And you'll notice that everything else, like the save button down the bottom, is grayed out because it will stay grayed out until 2 things have happened. First of all, you must put something into the name field. And secondly, you actually need to put the building or the feature or whatever it is onto the map itself. So you can type in anything you like in the name field, call it the test pavilion or the test building, or if you chose a point or line layer, then just change it accordingly. And what we want you to do now is just find somewhere to put it. So scroll your map or zoom in or out as you need to get an empty space. I'm going to do that on mine, and I'm going to take us to our recreation ground, which is a nice big empty space that we can throw a new pavilion onto without any problems at all. So I've zoomed in, moved to our recreation ground, and it's now showing large and empty on my screen. Hopefully you've done the same with your system. Find yourself any old field, doesn't matter where it is. And we're going to now add the pavilion or the test or wherever else you is. So if you don't have a name yet in the red box, please put a name. You can just click on date and choose any old date, but today's date is easy. And the status, you'll now see you can click on the mini arrow and choose any status you like. But since we're just starting, I think it should be under construction. And then on, or even not yet started. So on my system, I've clicked on you should have been able to save. No, I've told a lie, sorry. But all I got on my screen now is the fields filled in. So I've called the name a new pavilion, I put in the date, and I've said that the status is not yet started. You'll notice that the save button on the bottom of the column is still grayed out because we haven't actually put the feature on the map yet. So you'll notice as you move your mouse around, as it gets over the digital map, it changes to a crosshairs, and it's looking for you to enter the feature into the map. So go to the field or the space that you've created and just click once on the left click. If you've put a polygon in as your choice of geometry, then that first left click is just the starting point. As you drag your mouse now, you'll notice that the blue line follows it. And it'll follow it in a straight line until you click again, and then you can change direction. So you can do a right angle, move off to the right or the left as accordingly, click again, and then just gradually find your way back to the last point. When you've finished, double click. If you had chosen a line layer or a point layer, then it's a simplified version of that. The point you can just double click and say I'm there, and the line you just need to start and finish it. And you can change direction on the line again by just clicking or left clicking on the mouse. So you hopefully now have got something on your field or recreation ground or whatever, some sort of spot, building, line, whatever. And you should see that your save button has now become live. It's gone dark black. By all means, please click on it now. And the map should then show your building in a nice bright red after saying saved successfully. And do please shout at me if yours is not saying that or not showing anything. Now, the way the system works, the feature editor assumes that you're always going to add more than one item. So it comes up with a new blank record on the left-hand side, giving you the chance to set in the second building or whatever. We don't have to bother with that tonight. So click on the X next door to the feature editor word at the top of the left column and close it down, which I'm going to do. And you're now back on your main system. The parish layers have come up on the left-hand side. The test layer that you're working in should have a tick in it, and your building should show up, or whatever it is, should show up on the right-hand side in red. However, you may say that it's in the wrong place, or it's the wrong shape, or anyway, you need to learn how to edit it. So the way we're going to edit this is to click anywhere on your new red building or spot or line or whatever it is. Just click on it once and the record should open. It may come up with a layer in between, and you just click on the test layer and go in, and you'll find the record opens, and you'll see that you've got the name, the date, and the status all up there. If you want to change them, just click on the pencil at the top left, and that puts you into edit mode, and you can now change the name, change the date, change the status, or you can move the building. What we're going to do on my example, I'm going to move the building so that it follows exactly the boundary edge of the field. In your case, you're just going to do this to play so that you learn how to adjust the shapes of buildings and things. So you need, in order to adjust the building, which will now be, you notice, outlined in blue. So the feature you're actually working on is the red feature surrounded in blue. And to move the building or to move any of the lines, you want to edit the system. So if you haven't already clicked on the pencil, please do so now. And then put your mouse on any of the lines representing the boundary of your building or your line, whatever it is, and you'll see, and left click, and you'll see a blue dot appears. And you can now just practice moving that blue dot, because you can pull the system into shape. And a little click or hint here, now that the building has been put into place, you can zoom in and you'll find that the details become much more easily visible, and you can line it up with anything you want to. You can get the right angles as right angles instead of whatever you had much more easily the larger the scale you work on. So just to straighten things out, you can move your mouse to any point you like. It turns into a blue dot when you click, and then you just pull the line into the shape you want. I hope everyone's happy there. On my side, everything is fine. On your side, is there a slight Emma sound or not a slight Emma sound? Not a slight Emma sound. Okay.
Good.
So what we want to do now is just to show you how to add an attachment so that you can add anything you like to a record in Parish Online. It can be a photograph, it can be a Word document, it can be a spreadsheet, almost anything can get attached. And to click on attachment, you may need to have saved your record and then click on it again so that it opens up and you can see the attachment block showing. You may need to click on the plus sign to add an attachment to it. And just click on the plus sign and then add anything from your computer. It doesn't matter at this stage what you add, you're just doing this for show. If you've got a spare photograph, then put one in. If you've got a spare Word document or a spare spreadsheet, just add it so that you can see that the system works. And then it may take a second or two, depending on how big the file was that you've added, and it should come up and say you have now one attachment. So I've done that. If you were coming back to my screen, you could see that I've now added an attachment to my record. And now we're going to teach you how you get rid of the record or how you get rid of the attachment. So to get rid of the attachment, it's got a red dustbin next door to it. And if you want to get rid of your building that you've just put in, there's a dustbin at the top of the feature editor on the left, and you just click on it and the building will disappear. If you want to keep a record or keep it just because it's handy to have, then don't bother clicking on the dustbin. But I've just shown you how to edit and how to delete should you need to. Right. I'll just pause there in case anyone is stuck on where they are. But if you're not stuck, then do please come back to the Zoom screen and you can see I'm going to talk very briefly about the asset register, bearing in mind this is just an introduction to Parish Online. So the asset register is a database waiting for you to fill it with all of your council assets, and it contains probably all of the columns that you'll need for the governance and insurance purposes. You can add as many records as you wish, but in this case, you cannot change the structure of the database. And the reason for that is very straightforward. This asset register is used by everybody using Parish Online across the country. So you don't want everyone willy-nilly changing the structure. You need to keep it the same for everyone. And so you can't change the structure in this case like you can in parish layers, but you can add data in a way that you cannot in third-party layers. So this is where you keep moving all of your assets from the spreadsheet or wherever it is you keep them in at the moment and put them into the asset register. And then later on, there is an asset register training session where I show you how you can get all the data out to send it to your insurance company when the time comes to restart your insurance, re-quote it, just get it going again after the 3 years up or whatever you had. So one of the things I mentioned here is privacy. So the only people who can see what you've got in your parish layers or your asset registers are your people yourselves. Nobody else can see what you've got. I can't see from where I am what you're doing in East Sussex or Stoke-on-Trent, but you can. And that's true for everybody. They can't see anything except what's in their own parish. You can move around the country wherever you like. I can create a record that covers, the cemetery in your area, and I will be able to see it, but nobody else can. So it's not much use to me. But if I like to know where my grandmother's buried, I can just put a sign in that says grandma is here, and no one else will see it. But it is outside my parish area, but I can see it. Because you can go anywhere in the country inside Parish Online. The only thing you can't do outside your own parish area is the publishing the public map. And then clearly your public map should only be for your local parish. So you can publish anything within your parish boundary to the public map, but anything you do outside your own boundary will not be publishable via the public map, but you can do everything else outside your area. So I've given you a clue here. I'm on my next slide showing you the main menu headings. And when I send you this presentation, all it does is give you a link to somewhere where you can find out about the main headings. And that somewhere is just a click on the main menu heading and it tells you how it works. There's also a built-in knowledge base to Parish Online, which is the cogwheel at the top right corner. The second option that comes up in the drop-down list is help and support. And you remember that's the way we went to get the PGSA license right back at the start. So I'm now into a question and answer session. I think I'll stop sharing my screen so that I can see you guys. And you can see me. Oh, welcome to Vesela, who's obviously arrived late. But I hope you were able to get something from this. And let's talk to Emma and John to see if there's any issues or problems. So were you able to follow that? Was that speedy enough or too speedy?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much.
You're all
A really
right.
good introduction.
Vesela, how are you? Not talking.
Sorry, it worked well. Sorry, I was listening to Emma. No, it was fine. Kept up just about. My only trouble I will have with all of this system is I'm afraid I'm colorblind. So
John,
it's a common
enough.
call.
You know, we have the user group runs a banter session every Friday afternoon between 3 and 4. And the purpose of this is just to have people who are themselves parish councillors or parish clerks who are all very familiar with Parish Online, and they just welcome anyone to drop in and ask questions. And what do I do? And much to my delight, one of them is colorblind. And so he's able to explain to us what on earth we do for people who are colorblind. So John, there is an expert on hand on Friday afternoons should you wish to discuss that sort of thing. So when I send the email out after this meeting with a list of sort of useful hints and tips, one of them will be how you drop in on Friday afternoons to get any questions you've got answered. And the way it works, they're a very friendly bunch of people, and they just expect you to drop in, ask a question, they'll show you how to fix it. They'll probably make you do the work so that you actually understand what you're doing. And then you're free to drop out again, and they won't think that you're standoffish or rude. But you're also welcome to stay if you happen to enjoy the banter or you want to converse with other people in your same boat, so to speak. It's actually interesting.
Appreciate that. You referenced during your discussion publishing online to websites.
Yes.
Presumably that there's a knowledge field somewhere that I can search to.
There is. There's also, I do a training session devoted to nothing else but public maps. Or publishing online. So right. I will send you a link in the email that shows you how to get further sessions should you want them.
Right. Thank you.
And you're most welcome. And is it Vesela? Is that the right way to pronounce your name? You need to unmute if you want to talk to us. I can see you smiling but not saying anything.
Hello, sorry, I was a little bit late.
That's
I
okay.
was 10 minutes into the session and I could not find my login details because for the Parish Online.
Yes.
But I was listening all the time, and I will try do what you were saying as soon as find the login detail. It just, I'm a new clerk and I have never used Parish Online, but I would like to start using it.
Well, very nice to talk to you, Vesela. And what I mentioned before you arrived, I said that I send everybody a copy of this presentation and the video, so you'll be able to go through it and you won't have missed anything.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
The other thing is that I always find that people who have mystery email names, I have no idea where you are. So your CMPC, where's that?
Compton Martin.
Compton.
It is between Bath and Bristol in area called True Valley.
Right, I know exactly where Chew Valley is. And in fact, there's a very interesting Chew Valley network of business people who have meetings and so forth. And there's a lot going on with Parish Online in that area.
It
So,
is, yes.
good.
And I believe we get to log on to Parish Online, and it's paid by our district council. So
Yep.
I'm sure I've got somewhere a password and login details.
So you're part of Baines, aren't you?
Yes, yes.
Yes. But just to the example of John and Emma, Baines is a unitary. It stands for Bath and North East Somerset, and they are hugely enlightened individuals. 10 years ago, they decided that all the information that they had at the unitary level was of interest to Parish Online people. So they published it. And it's very interesting to talk to them. The guy in charge is called Martin Laker. He's the head of their GIS department. And he was getting sick of parishes calling up and telephoning his people saying, could we please have a map of this? Could we please have a map of that? And he said, this is stupid. I'll give them all Parish Online and they can answer their own damn questions. But he said to help them, they don't know where the gritting bins are and they don't know where the salt bins are, but I do. I know where all the footpaths are and everything that they want to know. So I'll publish the whole lot and everything. They publish 400 layers extra to the Baines people that none of the rest of the country gets. So no wonder Vasela is smiling. She's buried in details of really useful stuff like conservation areas, tree preservation orders, all the stuff that parish councils are dealing with all the time. And Baines just throws the whole lot into Parish Online. It's wonderful. Baines is my favourite organisation.
Going to say they could teach East Sussex County Council a thing or two because they are horrendous in answering me.
One of the things I do, I also run the user group, and what we do is help people persuade their local planning authorities or whoever it happens to be to get their acts together, because they've all got the data that you want. It's all sitting digitally in their GIS, and they have no idea that you have the ability to see it down at the parish level. And what we found in Somerset was that there was a massive educational barrier. As soon as we were able to talk to them and show them what the system can do, they were falling over themselves to help us. They just had no idea what it was that we were doing down at the parish level and how we were drooling over the information that they had, if only they could provide it to us. And once they learned they could do that, it's a piece of cake.
We have secret squirrels at our planning office, though, who think that if they hide the new local plan, then we won't find out where they want to build in our area of outstanding natural beauty. But so I think the chances
there
of
are
them
all sorts of ways
sharing
around
anything
that.
with us is
Emma, there are all sorts of ways around that. So what I found in years of trying and bashing heads against walls is that the last person you need to talk to up at tier 1 or tier 2 level is anybody who's got anything to do with mapping, IT, GIS in their name or title. What you're looking for is somebody who's responsible for customer experience, the head of customer service, the director of customer experience, whatever it is, they're the people who are empowered to unclog the system. And we found that once we found the right person, the floodgates opened. It was marvelous. But also we started talking directly to the people who were involved, and they couldn't believe how helpful they were being. They loved it. So it is, I think, as much as anything else, it's a matter of culture, it's a matter of education. If we can get that through, and the main problem is finding the right person to talk to, but more and more councils now are finding that they've got a client service guy whose job it is to deliver service to his clients. And not many people in digital or county councils recognize that the parish councils are their clients, but we are. And most of them have also forgotten that there's a little law tucked away somewhere in the country's legislation that says they are obliged to provide that information. And what is beautiful is that the company behind Parish Online offer to do all the work involved for free. It's so valuable to everybody to have the information that they will do the work for you. It's just a matter of putting them in touch with your people at your request. So let me know if you want to do that, and I'll work with you and help you
Thank
out.
you. I've just got one quick question, Graham, just a slightly simpler one than I think untangling East Sussex County Council, but just about printing. I did see that there was literally just a print button that said if you want, so if you wanted to print that map or showing those layers.
Shall I show you how it works? Because that might be the
please. That would
fastest
be
way.
really
Let me go
handy.
back into my screen, go to here. Yeah. I think I've got Parish Online running. Let's get into it. No, I haven't. Let's start it up. So you've all seen this bit.
So you might just hear children in the background because they're complaining about going to bed. So.
Yes, no problem. So there's a print button up here under print. And what happens is it puts a square up on the screen. And what it's saying is everything inside that screen will get printed. So if it's not the right area, this is where you adjust it. So let's say we want to plot dairy farm. We zoom in a bit. And now that's what's going to get printed. And then you simply click on the print button and it whirs away to itself and finally comes up with a little button here. It's possible if you've got a long print list that this is slid down the screen, you can't see it. So you just scroll down until you can see it. Click on here and you get this lovely little printout.
Right.
All right, so you have the chance of adding a title that goes there and a description there, and you can put in a sort of a compass arrow, anything that's useful. You can put in the legend. If you've got a different coding, different colors for different things, that will all get printed for you here. And just down the bottom, there's a Crown copyright notice. So you're fulfilling all your legal obligations with this print system. And then let's see if I can just move you lot. Up here, you've got either a download choice, so you can download it as a PDF and then do whatever you will do with it, or you can just print it on a piece of paper, or if you've got the right sort of software, this button also lets you print a PDF as well. So lots of ways of getting the information out.
Thank you.
There's just to let you know that I run a whole series of training sessions for people, and in the email I send to everybody, I'll let you know how you can log in should you want to. And I guess that's it from my end. Any questions from anyone else's end?
I'm very excited by the land registry layer.
Oh, that is wonderful. That saves you so much trouble. The way that works, John, the land registry comes up with a number.
Yeah.
And that number is not the number that you give to the land registry. You have to go in and click on their in search button down the bottom left.
Right.
So it is the number you need, but it's not the one that they automatically ask for. You've got to do a little bit of digging around on the land title land registry website. And down the bottom left, there's a number that says, if you have the in search number or in view number, I can't remember what it is, something like that. And that's what you've got given to you by Parish Online.
But it gives fields, and that's the hard thing.
Yes, it does. It does everything that they know about.
Yeah.
And incidentally, just in passing, let me tell you that there's an obligation on the land registry to have all public land catalogued and digitally linked up by 2025. So they're pushing out emails saying, can you help us? Can you help us? If there's any land in your area which doesn't have a title that you can see, let us know. Because everybody owns something, I mean, every piece of land has got an owner of some sort, but it may not be registered with the land registry. So they're asking us to help them by saying, yes, there's this field here. It doesn't have an owner attached to it. If I come out of this print and go back to Parish Online, which is there, and if I come out of there and I go down to the land registry, which is there. So each of these numbers now is the reference number that you want to give the land registry website to get further information. If you've not done this already, let me warn you, they charge you. It's not a huge sum, it's something like £3, but for every request, and there's no way around it. I've argued that this is a government facility. They've already been paid to produce this information. They should give it to us for free, but they don't see it that way. But this is the number which I forgot what it's called, the in-search number or something. It's not the main number that their system asks for. You've got to go searching down the bottom left corner of their website, and it says, have you got the in-search number or whatever it's called? But yes, it's fabulous. But if you find a piece of land, and we've got one, where is it?
We've got
Here.
one as well.
So if we go down here a bit, yeah, we've got a piece of land that has no ownership to it.
Yeah.
And they want you to report that so they can find out who the owner is and get it filled up. You know, look at these bits here. So there's no one who owns, people own everything around it, but not these bits. So we've got to report those and say, get on with it, guys. By the way, because everywhere is surrounded by a drain, it suggests that these are fields which are underwater most of the year, which may be why no one wants to claim them. Anyway, it's a fabulous system. I hope you've enjoyed the introduction. I'm really grateful to you for finding the time, your private time, to come online. Thank you very much. I hope it's been helpful.
It has. Very.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Really
Send you all
appreciate it.
copies of the video, and you can all see yourselves smiling. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Graham. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.